Marlene, welcome to the Latitude Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be with you, Brian. Thank you so much.
I wanted to first off start off by congratulating you. You've built an incredible company at Stori, one of the most valuable companies in the region in tech, and a great inspiration for many other founders, all founders. I think in particular, I love seeing more female leaders, build incredible value. So how does it feel to build such a valuable company in such a short amount of time? I know I say short amount of time. It's, several years in the making and all the things you did before you started Stori. But tell me how it feels to be building the company and to have accomplished so much in such a short amount of time.
For me, this is just the beginning. It's exciting to be the new Mexican unicorn. This is a new milestone. I mean, we started as the founding team. We started to celebrating the new milestones because before we were so focused on just delivering the leader, and the acquisition, and so our internal OKRs and stuff like that. So we in a way forgot about celebrating the big milestone we have accomplished. So we started doing that this year. We first kind of by the end of this last year, we start celebrating, our Series C. Then we celebrate big time our first million customers, beginning of this year, and then the unicorn. But at the end, what we all feel is a big commitment with Mexico in general, because we're now serving 1.5 million customers, but there's a lot of customers that we need to serve, that we want to serve. And for that, we are very focused on, number one, providing an exceptional customer experience to the ones that we already have. And also working on our product so that we are able to deliver this type of services to more Mexicans. So what we feel is we're super committed to this financial inclusion mission. It's an honest mission that we have, and we're working super hard to deliver it. So this is how I feel. And being a female founder, I mean, that makes me proud, but because in a way, when I first started this business along with the rest of my co-founders, my first baby he was almost 1 year. He's 5 now, and now I have a newborn baby. So in a way, I have been doing this new business, and this and in fact, it's a business that is a passion I have, to really deliver good quality financial products. But at the same time, it has been challenging for me because I've been raising my own family. And in a way, I consider Stori as another baby, and it's part of, I'm just trying to be organized so that I'm able to be also for my family, but also present at this company. And as a woman, that makes me feel very proud, and that's something I always try to share with with other women that are trying to start a business or that are already in the fintech sector or founding and startup. That, I mean, my message is this can be done, and you can become a mother and you can have your own family as long as you get organized. And this is doable, It's not anything thing to do, but it's doable.
In my last company, I remember that, I had been building a business, and then I had kids, and, we had raised a significant, venture. We were scaling. I think we were about 400 or 500 people in the company at that point when I had, my first, kid and my second kid. And I remember I had the realization that, like, when you have a family and you're running a business, it actually forces you to be like way more efficient with your time because you're trying to optimize. So like I became this like superhuman, like, regimented schedule, which I'm actually, if you knew me before this, I'm not like a super regimented person. I'm kind of like, me lleva con la corriente, llegué a Latinoamérica without any kind of plans. But these life events force you to kind of, plan a little bit more.
It's amazing. I'm like you. I mean, I feel like I'm not the most organized organized person. I'm trying to be, by reading, getting some habits, and also having some advices from people who are actually very organized. But in a way, just because I have to be, I'm just talking about this morning. I woke up at 5 a.m. because I'm trying to be, part of the 5 a.m. club. And I'm just trying to get organized, but I'm trying to use my time, during the morning to do all those things, that I wanted to do for myself. Like reading something. I'm trying to learn how to do other things in the company in a better way. So I'm using those 2 hour and a half time for me. And then I also did my groceries, using this. So, in a way, I'm being more smart with my time. And I think that the time that I'm spending with my family is a really quality time. I'm not just there, I'm 100% with them, and with my 100% of, my attention with my kids. And when I'm not around, I'm 100% in the company and for the company. So you're right.
Yeah, it requires a consciousness of that, and it needs to be a priority. I wanted to dive into kind of some of the aspects of, financial inclusion that you'd mentioned. So we'll get to that in a second. But before we dive into Stori, you have a lot of professional experience with, traditional banking and financial services. How has that previous experience pushed you to work in the fintech segment?
Yeah, that is an important part of my career, or that has been an important part of my career, because when we first started Stori, part of the things I've learned in my previous experience, I actually use it for this company. I was very, as you can see in my CV, I was dedicated to operations, running operations on those financial institutions, and that was initially my main role, or my key role in this company. So before starting this business, I was in charge of operations in 2 other fintechs. So I was, in a way, very experienced doing that. So customer service, debt collection, those are the kind of things that I already know how to do. I was really focused, and I also dedicate my time to train my team. So now I can dedicate my time to other important and strategic things of the company. But going back to your question, all the things that I learned from those formal financial institutions in terms of how to better run operations in a more efficient way, how to measure how efficient those operations are, those are the learnings I use for this company.
You obviously build on your experience, and then it kind of culminates into into what you're building today. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the overview of the Mexican financial services. How many people are underbanked or underserved from a banking perspective? And talk through a little bit more about the challenges that they face in Mexico.
So we're talking about 60% of the Mexican population without a basic financial product. And by basic, I mean at least a deposit account. But in terms of credit, we are way behind. In terms of credit, and specifically in terms of credit cards, only 12% of the Mexican population has access to it. So we decided that we wanted to help on the credit access aspect, because back then when we launched in 2018, or when we were working on the product, we saw that there were some fintechs trying to offer wallets or deposit accounts. So in a way, we felt that not that the market was crowded, but it was starting to, at least that part of the offer was already covered, but not so much on the credit side. So we had the experience, because part of my co-founders, they come from Capital One in the US. They already know that business. So we decided that should be the product we should focus on Mexico, just because credit access was way behind, the deposits products. And it's also is super challenging product, because you need to be super good at underwriting. you need to understand the market risk, and that requires talent, and that requires also experience. And behind Stori, we have a very experienced team in the US, but also in Mexico, and that helped us a lot to start this business. In Mexico, the biggest challenge is exactly that, the underwriting part, so that you are able to serve the underserved in a way that is also sustainable for your business, right? So you don't lose money on the way, in a way.
Now at Stori, you offer a mobile first solution for credit cards, and to build a credit history for pretty much anyone, right? Is the focus?
Pretty much anyone, because we design different combinations of products. So we have different type of credit combination of credit lines, open fees, no open fees. In these combinations, we are using these combinations so that we are able to say yes to almost everyone who is applying for a credit card. The ones that are not receiving an offer from us are basically those who are not compliant with KYC, or who for AML reasons we cannot just approve. Yeah.
Got it. And talk about the aha moment, or if you could kind of reflect going back to those early days of like when you identified the specific opportunity for Stori.
So before launching the product, we talked to several potential customers. So we will be able to use those insights to design the product. We found out that the lack of access to credit was in general what they were suffering from in general. So but we have had during the course of our history several aha moments. Like when we launched in January 2020, just 2 months before pandemic. And one of the things that we were afraid of back then was pandemic itself. We weren't sure if pandemic were going to impact our business. And so in a way, we tried to be very, very conservative on the risk side to understand how the market was going to behave. And we saw that we saw no impact in the portfolio in terms of delinquency. We just saw that people, the demand was still there. And we also saw that the payment behavior of the ones that we had approved from January to, let's say, I think June, that we started, analyzing the data. One aha moment is that, people kept paying the credit card because they were at home. They needed the credit card to make some, some payments. They needed to actually buy some groceries, and they were actually very careful about having the credit card, pay on time, so they can continue to be using the product. And that was a very nice understanding that we used to continue growing and including more solutions for our customers that were actually forced to be at home.
How are those first talks with potential customers? You mentioned, what's the process like of building trust with those early customers? It's a new product. It's a highly complex and regulated market. Walk me through those first initial conversations, and then, what was the kind of insight that you had early on? You said credit was missing, but what are the things that you discover in those first kind of talks with customers?
So it's not only access to credit, but the type of product to offer is not alone what was required or what was actually the need of the people we talked to. But because, people can get, I don't know if easily, but they can get access to a loan in an informal way even, in this market. The thing is that it's not even the interest rate who is a problem to them, because when they need money, they just accept any interest rate. The problem is that they needed access to a payment method in a way. So that was an insight number one. It's not only the access to credit, but actually to a payment method like a credit card that they can actually use for online transactions, which is different from what they can get from a loan, like a payday loan or something like that. It's not the same way. And in our case, it's a revolving credit, right? So they as long as they keep paying it, they keep using it for their daily needs, for making payments, utility payments, and whatever they need to pay. This is a product that they didn't have, that is a good insight. It's a payment method. It's a secure payment method that they didn't have before. And now that they are actually relying on this payment method for their basic needs. I mean, they use a Stori for making paying the electricity bill. There is already our credit card is already there, and so every month they're able to actually automatically pay those type of bills with our credit card. And before, they had to just to go to this store to make those payment and pay a fee to make to be able to pay for electricity, or even a top up, all those solutions that for some people are just a given. For most of our customers were not a given. So we're just helping their lives be easier for them. That's basically what we're doing.
I like to say that fintech is kind of the gateway drug to Latin America, right? Because fintechs obviously have drawn a lot of global investors to the region. I'm curious to know, how were those early days of fundraising for Stori? How did it go? Back in 2018, was it an easy sell? Was it something that took you a long time? Walk me through those first meetings you had with investors when you said you were going to build Stori.
So Bean, who is our co-founder, was the one who was focused on the fundraising part. But if you talk to him, he can tell you it was not easy. It was not easy because I as many of the founders who are already in this business, they know that at the beginning, what you have from investors is that you got investors who invest in the team, in the founding team, in their experience. So and also, and number two, they invest in the potential of the market. So that's what we had initially. It wasn't easy because we were all first founders, except for our CTO, who was already experienced. This is his second company. So it was hard for Bean, but in a way, after Bean talking to all of them and telling what we wanted to offer in Mexico, they then came to Mexico and they met the rest of the founding team. And that's how we convinced our first investor into investing in Stori, because we have the experience. Our first round was in 2018, even before launching the product, 1 year before launching the product, and they invested in the experience that we have, all the co-founding team, and also the potential that the Mexican market has. So credit card is a business that is interesting just because the penetration in the market is so scarce, and we knew how to do it. So it wasn't easy. I cannot tell you it was something that the first investor said yes. It was hard, but we at the end we got the first investors trusting us. They came to Mexico, they talked to us. And they talk to also to people from the market that we introduced to them.
How do you divide your roles as founders? In the beginning, everyone's kind of a generalist, and then you've got kind of the founding team, and then you start needing to kind of verticalize and focus. What was the progression of deciding kind of how to divide and conquer as founders, and how has the evolution of roles evolved since the last 3 or 4 years in operations?
In a way, Brian, yes, generalist at the beginning, and not that much. Let me tell you why. So I was the person in charge of the operations, just because that was my experience. I'm also the only Mexican founder, so I use my connections. I know the people here. I was already in the fintech world since 2013, so I knew the people. I knew the potential partners. I'm also experienced on the compliance side. So I was also in charge of the license and all the regulation part. So that's on me. And on we also have another founder who was very experienced on product, and he used to work for Capital One, so he was dedicated to that. And also, I mean, marketing was not his strongest skill, but he in a way he really worked hard to get those knowledge and skill by bringing the right talent to his team. And then we have a CTO that we also brought to the team, and he has always been dedicated to being the CTO from day one. And then we have another co-founder team who is in charge of risk. And that's his experience. And he actually created the model risk from scratch. So in a way, we were generalists at the beginning, and not so much, because in a way, every co-founder in this company has their own different skill, so there's no overlapping. And our CEO, who is in charge of the fundraising, Bean, he's very good at it. He's the one starting the conversations, and then we all come after him just for the investors to meet each one of us. One of the areas that we have, I'm not saying all of us we have supervised, but at least 3 of the founders is human resources, because none of us is an expert on human resources. Like people area is a very challenging, a very important area. So number 1, we had been supervising that, then me, and then Sherman, just because, I mean, we're just trying to test who feels like, more, or who thinks is the fittest for that area. And that is the one that we have moved the most between the 5 of us. But in general, we are not generalists. We are very experts on our areas. That's how things have evolved among us.
Sounds like a very complementary team. And I agree with you on the kind of the people side of the business. Is, I generally think about founders are super involved in all the hiring in the first, 50 hires, because you really set the tone. Obviously, that becomes harder to be involved in all details of people as this company scales. But I think as founders, it's the materia prima, right, of the company. It's so important that you're close to it. And you'd mentioned, we're talking about financial services, and you'd mentioned that one of your co-founders focuses on, kind of risk assessment, and what are the challenges when it comes to fraud, risk assessment in this market? And maybe you could just briefly touch on that and how you tackle them.
In a country like Mexico, and perhaps many other countries, identity theft is one of the biggest challenge. So what we are doing is we are investing on technology, just to tackle those risks. In general, we're investing in improving our fraud prevention, not only at the origination level, but also at the transaction part. In this market, I mean, I think that investing in technology just for the KYC part, especially the origination part of the business is key. And as I mentioned, we have one of our co-founders has done that before, in his case for Capital One, and he knows, he has that knowledge, but he has brought also an experience, seems to make some improvements in the acquisition part. And they are also working on improving the transaction fraud prevention team.
Yeah, I guess it helps a ton if you've got, in all the different areas that you mentioned in the co-founders work, experience, you bring this kind of set of skills, and you probably bring a network with you to kind of jumpstart, different departments, which I think is a huge competitive advantage.
It's all about networks. I mean, it's my network, but, also we're using the other founders' network. So we are bringing talent from China, because some of them, they spend some time in China. So we're bringing developers in those in some countries in Asia, and we're bringing also talent from Capital One, because we also know people, like very good talent from Capital One, to the company, and we also have an office in the US, in Arlington, and we're bringing talent from them. So it's network matters. It's not only talent from Mexico, but in other countries too.
Absolutely. You can kind of, be thoughtful and design around your different networks that you have. So you raise this new, capital, relatively fresh capital. What comes next for Stori? How many customers do you want to reach, and what are the other services that you have in mind?
So what we're building, Brian, is a digital bank. So right now is a credit card, the main product we're offering, and we are creating this super app because we are trying to build an ecosystem in which we offer not only the way of monitoring your credit card transactions and how you use that money you're spending and all those type of information that are key for also the financial education mission that we have, but we are adding some services and solutions for our customers. Eventually, we would like to offer deposits, and not only deposits, but also we would like to offer a deposit with interest, so that we in this financial inclusion. We just want to align like the future products that we add to this platform that are also very aligned to the financial inclusion. It's not only allowing the possibility of opening a deposit account, but also receiving some interest for those savings. Also, we would like in the future offer some investment products. So we also teach our customers how to use their little or amount of money, how to invest that money in different solutions for them to. First, there's a lot of financial education to do, but those are the type of products we would like to have in the future. And that's it. I mean, in general, what we are doing is we're working on building a digital bank. That's what we want for Stori to become in the future.
As a follow-up, just a double click on that, how important is the financial education, part, and how do you expand your customer base through education, and what's the strategy and how to do that, and how do you think about geographic expansion in that context of expansion?
So we use our content strategies to educate our people, even by sending very simple but very timely reminders. There are things that are for people who have experience with credit card, like a given or something that is super obvious, like understanding the cut dates. I don't know if that's the right word, but the cut dates and the minimum payment and those type of things that are basic for credit card. They're not necessarily understood by our customers. So we are explaining them just the basics. The bank account, the credit card bank statement itself is complicated just because of the regulation. It needs to have a lot of information. So we're trying to also teach them how to read the statement, how to understand how we calculate the minimum payment. Those basic things is part of our financial education, and the reminders, the continuous reminders, we're letting them know that the cut date is coming so they can pay in advance so they don't pay interest. Those basic things are part of the education that we are very committed on delivering to our customers. And we notice that by doing that, we also are impacting the delinquency, because part of we noticed that part of the customers that were going delinquent was exactly because they weren't understanding how to use the credit card, when to pay, how much to pay, like the basic concepts. So we noticed that by doing prevention efforts, that helps a lot not to have those first payment defaults, and it helps a lot in general, just to use education to even for collections.
Yeah, and ironically, a lot of banks are disincentivized to do that because that's a revenue source for them.
Exactly.
But you can build when you do the right thing as a company, you may, in the short term not have the windfall of income,
Interest.
but you have a much longer, sustainable, more thoughtful relationship with your customer, and then they bring in other customers and they actually appreciate you, right?
Yes, exactly. Those are the kind of things that at the end people value a lot about what we're doing. I never remember, to be honest, I've been using credit cards for so many years. I never remember receiving a reminder from my credit card companies just to tell me that the cut date was coming so I don't pay interest. No one. And for us, it is important. It's part of aligning, what we are saying that we care about to what we are actually doing, even in the communication strategy of our customers.
So, you're in Mexico right now. What's the horizon for geographic expansion? I know it's a complex business to launch in other countries because of regulations and and a handful of other barriers. What's the thought process there? And Mexico has been the primary market, but how do you see the rest of the region?
So our vision is to actually serve one. It's crazy. I know it's crazy, but it's something we want to do. We want to serve 100 million people in LATAM. So yeah, of course, we have plans to launch 1 or 2 countries next year, additional countries, at least, yeah. We are expanding to additional countries with similar needs that Mexico has. I mean, do you know that Mexico is way behind in terms of financial inclusion, way behind to countries like Colombia, Chile. We're way behind. We are going to be launching in countries that are similar to Mexico in terms of financial inclusion gaps.
And let's talk, you've already mentioned a little bit about, your interest in building something that has a social impact. And, you're getting traction on your mission, and, Stori's gotten pretty big in size. So that enables you to do more. If you were to think forward about what the kind of main social impact that you've had on society, what would you say, what comes to mind in terms of manifesting that?
So the main impact is that we're helping people who has been ignored for so many years by traditional banks, by incumbents. We're helping them build a credit history they didn't have. They just didn't have access to that. So by helping them build this credit history in a healthy way and with education, we're just helping them. We're helping them open doors to other type of products, not only with us. In the future, we will have more products, and I hope that they stay with us for longer, but we're helping them also, just be there, be part of the ecosystem and have access. That's the biggest impact. And this is why for me, it's important that we continue growing in terms of products and solutions for them. So they stay with me. I don't want them to go else just because a story helped them, open doors for them. I want them to continue growing with us. It's not only providing access, but we want to grow with them.
Yeah, so layering
to be part of their story.
Part of their story. I love that. It's a layering on different ancillary products. That makes a lot of sense. We've been the last 6 months or so has been quite an uncertain economic climate. Slowdown in startup investments. You've seen it. How do you see this affecting Stori and the LATAM fintech ecosystem at large? Which kind of fintechs are positioned to thrive and survive, and which ones are going to be struggling and may fall apart? How do you see that from your vantage point?
In terms of our portfolio, for sure, we're monitoring closely, just because we can not just ignore the fact that we have high inflation in this country, perhaps also in the US, not perhaps, but in the US, in Mexico, we also see that. So we're closely monitoring. That's on the consumer side. On regarding the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, I mean, we all know that's going to be hard, next round, just because money is more expensive now. I think that companies that are focused on being profitable soon, very soon, like we are going to, I'm not saying it's going to be easy for all of us, but it is going to be a lot easier than the ones that we're planning, to be profitable perhaps in by the end of next year or 2024, just because they were just focused on acquisition. In our case, acquisition is important, but we are very cautious on, right now we're very mindful on cost reduction in general. So we invest in what's important. And for us, what's important is investing in our current customers, the credit lines, especially for the ones that are super good customers, and the talent. We're bringing more talent to the company, so we are able to deliver more products very soon. Yeah.
So how do you see the evolution of the Mexican startup ecosystem in the last 4 years? We've seen huge growth. What are the things that still need to be worked on? What are the opportunities?
I think that the main opportunity, I mean, this is exciting. I told you that I started in this ecosystem. I started when I left the corporate world in 2013, like beginning 2014. So back then, there were only 2 or 3 fintechs. So for me, it's exciting just to see that new companies are coming. Excited to meet new founders, like very smart people around. So what's happening in Mexico is amazing. I'm also happy to see more investment coming. People like you, Brian, that are actually betting for Latin America, and actually you are in Mexico. So this is something that for me is super encouraging. What's happening in from 2014 until now. What I think that we still need to do a lot more, and this is something I have even discussed with some people at the government. They think that this is exciting, but we need to be more organized, like more united in a way, because they see that this fintech is trying to do this fintech is trying to do, but we are not as how do you say gremio, like as a group doing things together. And in terms of regulation, like every single fintech is doing their own part and going to talk to the regulator, but in a separated way. We are not doing this conjointly. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. And we need to do this a lot more because the market is huge. I know there's competition, but we need to collaborate a lot more. And this is something that's not happening enough in Mexico.
Yeah, so more of a unified front across the startup ecosystem and specifically fintechs, and how, because all of these adjustments, they all benefit startups, right? Because they benefit consumers at the end of the day. That's why we're all doing this, right? To serve the end user, which they're if they can have less friction, better pricing, better options, they're going to be in a much better place. And hopefully, I don't feel bad for the incumbents, because the incumbents have had a pretty lock on the market for so long. And we know what happens when there's big companies that control big portions of the market. They end up, their service end up suffering, and the experience is not as good. So I think we're all motivated to try to elevate the next generation so that the consumers can benefit.
We must be, inspired by that, and we just motivated by that. We want to elevate the ecosystem. We want to elevate, as you mentioned, the incumbents. They had their time. I mean, they're trying to change, and I'm not saying it's too late. If they are fast, they can actually do something great in the next 1 or 2 years. But in general, I mean, I consider it will take time for them to start changing, just because that's how they are. And what I really would like to see more, and I've talked about this with a few founders, is more collaboration between the ones that are really serious about what we are changing. I mean, what we are doing in Mexico. We need to collaborate on regulation, the fintech, because our the type of business we are in is super regulated in this country, so we need to collaborate a lot more. And as an industry, in general, we barely talked. We need to be, because what I perceive from the government officials sometimes, and a constant comment they made is like, you are all separated, you all your efforts are, independent, and this is not something we like, because at least the incumbents, like the banks are pretty well organized, and there's one like the leader, representing all of them, and talking to the government, defending their interests. This is not happening for us.
How can we go about getting more unified, and what kind of leadership will it take?
I have some ideas, and actually my team and I are working on some proposals, and we want to present those type of proposals to the FinTech Association, because I'm really committed to this. I think that the market is huge, and we will have opportunities for everyone in this market. So we need to stay united. Yeah.
So maybe a call to action.
Something I want to do in the
call to action for any FinTech founders, investors. Marlene, reach out to her, and she's trying to create a movement here. And I think that
yes,
we say at Latitude, the rising tide lifts all boats. And so I think that unless you're maybe an incumbent and your interests, you want to protect your interests, maybe you're not as invited to the party, but maybe you are if you're willing to make some modifications and also support more competitive dynamics, which at the end of the day, consumers win. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for making the time. Any last comments? Any last thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you for the time and space.